to the Mid-South Baseball Report. I'm your host, Johnny Ray.
Hey folks, it's Kevin Kennedy at USA Stadium. I want to let you know about our summer. We start Memorial Day weekend. We run 8 great perfect game events here in Memphis. We have 2 Mid-South WWBAs that'll be played in June and 2 WWBAs in July. The East Championship, formerly held in Hoover, has now been moved to Memphis. We sure would like to see you at the park.
When we started the Mid-South Baseball Report a couple months ago, we had no idea exactly where it was headed. But in all the people that I've talked to, everybody wanted to know when I was going to get Phil Clark on. Well, today we have him. Phil Clark, front and center. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about today, but just to give a short snippet of some of the things that you've accomplished, I just want to start the show by giving you a couple props with your accolades, and then we're just going to talk baseball for a little bit. Coach, you're a Hall of Fame member of basically any baseball association that I've looked up. You're a Hall of Famer with Tennessee Baseball Coaches Association. You're a Hall of Famer with University of Memphis and their M Club. A Hall of Famer with the Memphis Amateur Sports, and also a member of the Baseball Coaches of America High School Association. Those are just a couple that I found. I'm sure I've left some out.
That'll do.
That's enough to get started on. When you retired after your 2013 season, you were the all-time winningest coach in the state of Tennessee with 933 coaching victories, 21 district championships, 7 state runners-up, 5 state championships, 19 state tournament appearances. Do you miss it at all?
You know, after 34 years, I was kind of ready for a change. But the one thing that I do miss the most is practice. The cutting the fields, the weight room, the long games that are drawn out. I don't miss that a lot. But when I'm missing practice every day, you know, you're developing your relationships with your kids, you're talking to them, when they're stretching, you're seeing how they did at school or what's going on. Maybe somebody's picking on each other, laughing at each other, those kind of things, the laughter, the bonding. And as a coach, players, the games are the players and the practices is the coaches.
I've heard you say that before.
And that's I love being out there, having them all moving, trying to get them better every day, and just really getting after it and teaching them the work ethic that's going to take them to be successful in life as well. So that's the real thing that I miss the most. But with my new job, I've got so much stuff going. I really don't have time to think about.
What is your new job? What keeps you busy these days?
I'm the athletic director for Bartlett City Schools. So when we started our school system, I guess 7 years ago, I was talking to David Stevens, who was going to be the superintendent. I had a pretty good idea. And he asked me, he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'd like to be the AD." He said, "Well, we don't have those positions. Nobody does." I said, "Well, we've been left behind a lot for Bartlett over the years." And I said, facilities-wise, we're way behind, and we need somebody in that position out of the classroom. And that was a big point, being out of that classroom every day.
Right.
And so just working with all the athletic programs. That is when you're running your program, you don't have time to get to know track athletes or soccer athletes or basketball, football. You know them because you go to ball games, but you see them walking in the halls. But getting to be involved in what they're doing on a daily basis, just kind of, my job is to help the coaches any way I can to provide a better opportunity for them and their team. And you got to have a little bit of salesman in it, because you got to be able to get out in the community and
And you got to have a name. You've got the name. People trust you.
It helped out being on the north end out here because I was a Fraser boy growing up, and then taught at Skyview, and then back out here to Bartlett. So I've been on the north end most of my life, and so that's that was enjoyable. But really Bartlett's Fraser East.
That's right.
And so I knew so many people out there already that helped me even when I took the baseball job years ago. And I heard Calipari say something one time at a banquet that between 10 and 15 years a coach needs to go change places because you get tired of things, people get tired of you get tired of people. And a new lease on life kind of situation happens, and everybody's excited when you start, new. And so that was something that even when I went to Bartlett as a coach and then doing the athletic director, it kind of just worked together that it was time. It was time. It was time for Coach Stewart to take over. He's done a great job since I've left. And I told him then, I said, don't worry, I won't be out here. I'm not going to be at practices. I'll be sitting down the left field line down there watching the game, but I ain't going to be in your way. It's your program, you run it, and I'm here to help you any way I can. So that's just kind of what I'm doing now. And we've had, over the last 4 years, we've had over $70 million renovation at the high school with all our new athletic facilities, football.
One of the things I was going to say is that football facility is tremendous.
We're really excited about it. We've just finished our 3rd year on it, and I thought about getting out this past Christmas a few weeks ago, and I thought to myself, it's been a labor of love here getting this construction. I can't see finishing it and then walking out the next day. I'm going to at least be able to reap the benefits and see the new stuff for about a year and a half, because I think that's about what I got left.
Well, everything that I've ever known about you, it's always been a labor of love, and you've always invested everything you've ever had into that, and just poured your heart and soul into it. And as we continue on, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about your current state of your Bartlett High School baseball program. When you retired after the 2013 season, you mentioned that you left the program in great hands with Josh Stewart, but that coaching staff has been with you for a long time. Talk about Kirby Grisham and your son Zach and Stu and some of those guys that are in that program. Steve Ledford. Y'all have been together for years.
Well, I think that's always such a important area, I think, for high school athletics, because you get so many schools that they get a new coach this year, and then 2 years later they're having to get another coach, then they're having to get another one, and a kid may end up going through 3 coaches by the time he's from a freshman to a senior, and that's tough for anybody. The coaches coming in, the players, this is just sort of, it's just sort of rolled over. I mean, me and Josh worked together for 12 years.
Yeah.
And we would have disagreements or arguments or whatever you want about how we did it.
Right. They were productive.
And I laugh. We have one comment amongst our coaching staff that when we would argue, and then finally somebody looks like, enough said. When that comment was made, okay, argument's over.
Yeah.
It's finished. I've heard what I want to hear, or they've heard what they want to hear from me. But they've got such a good group of guys. I really think that they've got I think the well-being of the kids is the very first on their list of what they're trying to do. Get them to the next level. Sure, everybody wants to win. If you got a scoreboard up there, you want to win. But they've had a lot of kids leave. You can go play at the collegiate level, and probably more than I've had, in a period. But that's great. Every time we have another Bartlett kid sign a scholarship or or even being a guaranteed walk-on, because we've had some tremendous success with kids who were great academic kids who maybe didn't get the best offers, but they were going to be able to go to college for free because they're academics. 30 ACT kids, and Daniel Wright's my best example of my coaching career. He had no offers out of high school, 30 ACT kid. He ended up going to Arkansas State,
right,
being their Friday night starter for 2 years, and then ended up going through the minors, getting drafted, and pitching in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And he didn't get a scholarship offer.
Isn't that strange? And that's one of the things I want to kind of talk about is how kids, how the game has changed, how kids have changed, and the specialization of baseball, and just, somebody like Daniel Wright, who came through with no offers, no opportunities, but academics led him to be a place where he could progress. What do you see in today's state of the game that is good and bad?
Well, the first thing that really bothers me the most is the really, really early commitments, because everybody's got to project. When you choose a team and you've got ninth graders out there, you're not looking to see what they can do now. You've got to project what you think they can do when they're juniors and seniors. And I think they're putting so much stress on the college coaches to have to pull a trigger on a kid early, and then it's not the greatest thing, but sometimes I've seen it happen and it worked out for kids. But I've seen kids commit to a school, and then when it gets close to signing time,
they pull that
scholarship offer because he hadn't progressed like they thought he had in those 2 years that they offered him 2 years ago. So
well, you see it more and more. In one of my previous interviews, I sat down with Mark Carson, and he and I were in the same boat. It was after our senior year of high school back in the mid to late 80s that we didn't know exactly where we were going to go to school.
I told parents, July the 4th, after my senior year, I got a scholarship offer to go to Jackson State, community college.
And now you got kids committing as early as the 8th grade. You mentioned 9th grade, but now we got 8th graders committing that hadn't even stepped foot in a high school hallway yet, and they think they already know where they're going to college.
And to me, it's tough for the kid, it's tough for the coach. That part scares me. Now, today's game of everything else, I think that the big leagues have changed some things, the way that they're launch angling and exit velocities and things like this. And it was probably best that I got out, because I just don't think I could coach high school baseball like that.
Well, Coach, I always saw you get the most out of every kid you ever coached. You don't get that luxury today of being able to take those little dirtbag kids that are $120 weight-wise, they're weak as water, but all of a sudden you put them on that field and you get their best out of them. Sometimes the statistics of a showcase may give a kid that may be a little bigger, faster, and stronger an edge over somebody that's a true baseball player.
That's one thing that I love to come to this, the high school challenge tournament that was here at USA for years and years. And it was always in August, it was hot, and we always were successful in that tournament because I think we were just mentally tougher. We could handle. We didn't let the heat bother us. We kind of just said, hey, it is what it is. It's the same temperature for that team as it is our team. Who's the toughest? Not maybe the physically tough, but the mentally tougher kid is going to get through those days. And I think I don't think we have that mental toughness sometimes in use because of the showcase stuff that goes on now. And that's part of the world we live in, so accept it. But, you had to earn your way on the field back in the day, and with us, and it was a grind. I mean,
you definitely can't coach kids as tough as you
Oh.
did back in the day.
Josh can't coach them as tough today as it was when I coached. That's just society demands are not going to allow it. Social media, everything that's out there is it's tougher for young coaches.
It really is.
And I did hear this as a stat, and it scares me. But I heard on the national average, counting I think football, basketball, baseball, and I'm not sure what other sport, but they said the average high school coaching life now is 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I know all kinds of guys, the Lane McCarters and the Collins Days and Coach Kelso and, all the guys around.
Put their whole life into it.
Right. And I worry that there's not going to be enough people to truly work with the kids and have that passion to coach every day. I heard Coach Peterson say this one to me and him were talking at a clinic.
Coach Peterson from Middle Tennessee State.
Right, the head coach from Middle Tennessee for years and years. And Pete looked at me at a coach's clinic one day, and me and him were talking about, he was getting up there close to retirement. And I said, Pete, what is going to be the determining factor he says, the day I don't want to go to practice. He says, and I tell that to every coach, if you don't want to go to practice, you don't need to be. He said, everybody wants to coach in a big game.
Right.
It's exciting.
Turn the lights on and go play, that's easy.
Exactly. You got a big crowd. Everything's exciting. Boom, people hanging on each pitch. But he said, the day you dread or even doubt that you want to be at practice is the day you need to give it up.
Yeah.
And I've told a lot of people that because Coach Peterson had been a mentor of mine for a long time, and every time I get a chance to sit beside him and talk, I always learn something from him.
No doubt. Well, I want to go down memory lane with you a little bit, kind of go back to the early years of Phil Clark. As you mentioned earlier, grew up in Fraser. Fraser must have been something in the water back in those days. I mentioned one of my previous shows with Mark Carson. I sat down with Jeff Hopkins. He gave us a little snippet of what it was like to grow up in the Fraser community and some of those players that came through there.
He coached me in American Legion.
He alluded to that.
He was right out of college, and I was right in the middle of high school. So,
Yeah.
but those were some
Y'all kind of
fun
grew up
times.
together, probably.
We did, and his younger brother, his baby brother Mike, was the same age as I was, so we played ball together growing up. And Jeff really come and started coaching in Legion ball just out of necessity for a group of kids from Fraser that needed someplace to play, and he got a couple of guys that found a sponsor for us, and here we go, and we played, we had fun, and it's memories that I'll never forget. And Fraser was a good place. It was a baseball, blue-collar community.
Right.
But that's back in the days where we woke up in the morning, most of our moms was still at home.
Kicked you out the door and said, "Go,
I see you at lunch."
Yeah.
And we were out in the street playing wiffle ball or tennis ball or cork ball or any kind of ball, basketball, whatever it was. Football. We were playing it all every day, and that's just something that the neighborhoods are not like they used to be. And like I said, it was a blue collar community. All the dads worked in the factories out here on the river, and my dad put in his 42 at Kimberly-Clark, and so it was a tight-knit community. We'd fight, we'd hug, but that's okay. We'd do them both same day probably, but it was a great place. And then when getting through playing at Memphis, I got the opportunity to coach at Skyview right there in Fraser, and I had a little bit of help because I had played at Memphis, so people knew that I had played at college when I got there, so that helped. And I knew some of the kids that were there, because heck, I guess my first spring I was 23, and some of them were 18.
Yeah.
And then I can remember driving the church bus to away games at 23 years old, and I was over my head. Promise you.
Well, and so you were at Skyview for a couple of years, and then you go to Germantown High School, and I think this is you kind of set the seed at Skyview, but the legend of Phil Clark now starts to become a reality at Germantown High School.
Well, we got to be in big boy ball then. I mean, Skyview was a single A school, and I was there for 8, and we had some success. But when you got to Germantown, then it was like I say, it was everybody: Christian Brothers, Briarcrest, Kirby. It was before Houston was built, but that was a league. It was a great league, and if you got out of that, you got in the top 2 of that league to advance. Then you had to go play the Munfords, who had Flanagan's going to Texas, and people like that, Fultz. Oh, that's a nightmare. Back-to-back years,
Yeah.
But yes, when we got to Germantown, it was a shock for me, because the very first day when I got there, it was in the fall of '87. We were still able to have fall practice. They'd give us 10 days of fall practice, and I remember I only had one assistant coach in baseball, and he was a football coach, so it was me, and I had 99 kids on that field trying out.
Wow.
Not counting the football player, but I had 9. But Germantown was also, I think it was the largest school in the state at that time. So I just looked around and I went, at Skyview, I knew who the shortstop was going to be from the time that kid was in the 6th grade. By the time he got to the 9th grade, I knew he'd be our shortstop. So we knew what was happening. We were, you had 14, 15 kids on the team.
A great problem to have, but it was a problem.
Oh, it was. And so that was one of the toughest things I've ever done, was having to start in that big of arena with that many kids, still being kind of young and green and not, have never been in a big school before, and being by myself out there.
Right.
But I did know some of the kids, because Coach Sykes, who I followed,
George Sykes,
Yeah.
long-time baseball guy in the area.
Yes, great baseball guy. I had gone out and coached probably 10 games with him when I found out I was going to get the job. So I got to know some of the returning players. So I just had to get them to help me with tryouts. I hate to say it, but I'll be honest, brutally honest. I told them if they can't catch and they can't throw, put a check by their name, and basically you cut them instead of me. But them kids, I was scared. Also, that many balls and that many kids out on the field, somebody getting hurt, and so on one baseball field and one tunnel, and but we made it, and it grew. We had to really work. I think the best thing that helped me at Germantown was getting to know Coach Netherland. He taught me so much as a young coach, and he'd been in Germantown area for a long time. Great, I think best football coach in the history of the state, and I know he was a winning coach for
Be
a while.
hard pressed to find one better.
Exactly. And Mr. Chisholm, who was the principal, those guys really, really helped me. But then also, we got more football players involved in baseball than they had in the past. And I always said, if you make a play out there in front of 5,000 on Friday night, that ground ball in the 6th inning in front of 150 might be it's not so
Piece of cake.
Yeah, it's not so scary anymore. So, but we got the football. I think we got more football players involved, and I really think that helped our program, made us tougher, and so it just that, and then starting the Germantown community is a baseball community as well, and that, and to me, is in getting involved with our youth camps, getting to know those kids, them getting to know me, and
You built it from the bottom up, and my son had always been involved when he was growing up, being part of your camps, and just that way you're able to understand what you got coming and put a name with a face, and vice versa. They get to find out if they want to go play for football.
right, if they want to, that old man wasn't nice to me, so I want to go somewhere else, But I tried to be pretty nice to all them campers. But it was enjoyable, and like I said, it's like I tell these young coaches, and I hate to be, like I said, I've always been people said I'm brutally honest, but I tell them, I said, you know, if you're just in this to make a check, to help supplement your income, you're in the wrong place, because I got to have coaches that have a passion for the game. I don't care what sport it is, you got to have a passion to excel. And
if you're not giving it your best, those kids are going to realize it, and you're not going to get their best in return. It just goes without saying.
The kids will read you quicker than anybody else, just like in the classroom, anywhere else. Kids are sharp as they can be, and they know, and they figure it out.
Yeah. Well, so your first year was '87. I'm gonna at Germantown. I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit. 1995, national champion across the board, undefeated, 38-0.
Mark Turnbow, the Southeastern Collegiate League. We're excited to kick off our second year here at USA Stadium. To request a roster spot, visit secollegiateleague.org. Thank you.